A short reflection for Maundy Thursday, 2021. St. John chapter 13, verse 12. After washing their feet, Jesus put on his garment and sat down again. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked. The deepening emotion and the heightened tension of the final days of Jesus Christ, the Son of Man and the Son of God, as he lived out his life on earth, obviously focus our attention on the final days of Holy Week. A number of jagged edges and raw brutalities come together in concentrated form. Personal betrayal, uneasy relationships, physical humiliation, psychological degradation, crucifixion, and death itself. But by the same token, we need to remember what we learned at the very outset of this whole process. I take you back to St. John chapter 1, verse 5. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has never mastered it. This phrase comes bursting forth from the prologue to St. John's Gospel. It is the Gospel for Christmas Day, the day when this now hideously shattered life began. If we believe anything, then we do need to accept and to respect both the manger and the Word, working together in tandem and in tension. It's not called the prologue for nothing. It sets the tone, it sets the scene, it prepares the canvas for an extraordinary life lived ordinarily. In him was life, and that life was the light of mankind. Again, St. John chapter 1, and this time the 4th verse. Life gives light. Life is for others and not only for oneself. Life is for the sharing of light. These are fine words of Christmas warmth as we gaze into the glow of a log fire with the prospect of a dinner well roasted. But how does it feel as we gaze into the blood and gore of incarnation, walking towards crucifixion through the lens of Maundy Thursday a few months later? The first thing to remember is that Jesus sets his willful self-humiliation in washing the feet of his disciples as their master in the realms of glory. St. John chapter 13, verse 31. Then Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him himself." The word glory is used 5 times in the one sentence. This glory, of course, was first revealed when the Greeks came to the Passover and asked Philip to introduce them to Jesus. This glory was about opening the gospel of salvation to people of every land and of every tongue. Its role, I would suggest, was to enable them to decide for themselves and to embrace Jesus Christ, if such became their conviction. But this glory was also about suffering. The message of Maundy Thursday and Good Friday is that service and suffering give voice to glory, long before success and celebration could ever do so. A modern Western Christian world, talking largely to itself through positive noise, finds this frankly incredible. Churches generally are fueled by success. For reasons like this, we on the inside need Maundy Thursday and Good Friday, year after year to temper our vanity. The Reformed tradition is squeamish about the word sacrifice when it is applied to Jesus Christ. I suggest that this recoiling from a line of interpretation that is entirely scriptural leaves us impoverished, should we wish to understand and to live the passion in the round and in our lives from day to day and hour to hour. The act of Jesus in stepping down from the table to the floor to wash the feet of the disciples was indeed an act of sacrifice. It was an act of sacrifice not least because Jesus had the assurance in doing this that the Father had given all things into his hands and that he had come from God and was going to God as he left the table and as he hit the floor. On Palm Sunday, of course, we have read St. Paul's account of such self-emptying, of such kenosis, how Jesus was in the form of God, yet he laid no claim to equality with God, but made himself nothing, assuming the form of a slave. St. Paul's letter to the Philippians, chapter 2, verses 6 and 7. Here, a few days later on Maundy Thursday, we literally see this in action, in slow motion, as he washes the feet of the disciples. This is both sacrifice and glory, with suffering staring him in the face as he goes to get up. What a moment! Is it any wonder that sacrifice itself became the carrier of his fresh expression of the Passover meal with his friends? Significantly, we hear nothing of their reaction except a thundering silence. We might not have done any better ourselves. And still today, we might not do any better either. Jesus continues by laying out before them the reciprocal relationship, the seesaw of equivalence between teacher and pupil, between master and servant, between sender and messenger, in the new way of things, in the new way of service. Nothing that the pupil, the servant, the messenger might do is beneath the teacher, the master, the sender. The flow of information and the rhythm of action are now entirely different from what they used to be, but they are totally secure within the sacrifice and the love of God. And the pomp of hierarchy suddenly has a lot less to offer. This is the gift to us today on this Maundy Thursday, who in the ministry entrusted to us step into this flowing river of service as we renew our vows of calling and response to God. In 2020, physical distancing and the personal alienation that goes with it were a novelty. So also were the organisation and the delivery of liturgy and worship remotely. In the times between March 2020 and April 2021, we have had no option but to work with what is there. The same goes for that other great engine room of ministry, pastoral visiting. Both of these ways of ministering, of being ministers of the gospel, have changed radically and simply cannot revert to the way they once were. And I say this not because anyone who exercises a ministry, lay or ordained, has proved to be a failure. Far from it. It is because what such people have been doing in the past has proved to be a success. People who never wanted to and still do not want to exercise a formal ministry in and from the church have been doing service and sacrifice since at least March 2020 in ways which are sustained, altruistic, sacrificial, and beyond the call of exhaustion itself. It is not that they do not need us as we define ourselves. It is rather that they are alongside us and different from us in their effectiveness. And they are doing things that can never possibly be done in church. They are in the community in ways that the ordained regularly are not and cannot be. Where then does this leave us on Maundy Thursday 2021? I hope that it leaves us affirmed we should be. I hope that it leaves us appreciative we should be. I hope it also leaves us open to honouring and celebrating what others do and what we on our inside track might rightly call religion sacrificially. We should be. They simply might call it a day's work. But most of all, within the distilled and distinctive concentration of the Christian faith, it ought to leave us proactive rather than reactive in our response to those Maundy Thursday words of the Word of God. The child in the manger, the washer of feet. Do you know what I have done to you?